The name of the father was Yip Sopyong. It was Yip Sopyong's father who moved to Zizing. He couldn't figure out why they came from the Central Plains to Zizing, but they lived a typically normal life. Until the monks of the Xiaolialayan temple visited many years ago. When the first batch of monks from Xiaolialayan temple came, Yip Sopyong's father lost his life. He went out to protect his beloved grandson and was attacked by the monks. After that, Yip Sopyong had engraved his resentment against the Xiaolialayan temple. In order to somehow save his child, he gathered information about the Xiaolialayan temple. Little was known about the Xiaolialayan temple. They thoroughly blocked information about their sect. And if by any chance someone would spread rumors that could bring even the slightest harm to the Xiaolialayan temple, the monks would pursue them to the ends of hell and punish them. Due to those circumstances, even those who knew something about the Xiaolialayan temple were silent. It's because they don't know when the monks of the Xiaolialayan temple will come after them if they ever talk about the said sect. No one gave information to Yip Sopyong. However, Yip Sopyong did not give up. The father's tenacity after losing his child was so great that he dug into even the smallest information. Those who admired his tenacity shared the information they knew. As if raking up millet that had fallen to the floor, Yip Sopyong relentlessly gathered information about the Xiaolialayan temple. The best person in the Xiaolialayan temple is the sect leader. He is called Hyalbul. His martial arts was said to reach the sky. There is a saying that he has mastered the technique called the supreme layer of the heavenly dragon. 1. Yip Sopyong didn't know what kind of martial art it was. He just heard that the best martial arts of the Xiaolialayan temple is the supreme layer of the heavenly dragon, and Hyalbul managed to master it. More than a dozen people serve as Hyalbul's hands and feet, including the 10 monks. There are 300 demon blood monks too under Hyalbul's 10 monks. Both groups can be said to be the main special forces of the Xiaolialayan temple. In addition to the previous 2 groups, it's also known that there are about 3 or 4 organizations which have been raised for a special purpose, which includes the kidnapped children. They are being raised as weapons specifically for a special purpose. Compared to the effort he put into gathering information, the knowledge that Yip Sopyong knew was actually nothing great. It was a level of information that anyone could get with just a little bit of effort. But for Pyawul, it was of great help. A true assassin would collect and analyze as much information as possible before proceeding with the job. If it were a normal situation, Pyawul would have been calmly walking around the cold Namling forest while slowly gathering information. But this time he couldn't. Once Hukum reaches the Xiaolialayan temple, all of the Xiaolialayan temple's monks will realize that Pyawul is on his way, and thus, prepare for his arrival. The more time he spends staying in the Namling forest, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. This is because the defense of the Xiaolialayan temple will become even stronger. He needs to strike when the iron is hot. They should not be given time to respond properly. Even if Hukum is a member of Xiaolialayan temple, it will be difficult for them to believe the information he delivers. It is because Pyawul's ability was beyond common sense. So the perfect opportunity to strike is when the monks of the Xiaolialayan temple were still in doubt. If Pyawul takes any longer, the Xiaolialayan temple might already be persuaded by Hukum. Pyawul got up from his seat. Amyang also stood up. I'll follow you too. Nonsense. Pyawul dismissed him coldly and then turned around. Then, Amyang grabbed Pyawul's trousers. Why? I can help, too. Let me go with you. Amyang was not ready to let go until Pyawul agreed. But Pyawul had no reason to accept his foolishness. Tuck. Pyawul lightly hit Amyang's head. Amyang could not even scream and lost consciousness. Yip Sopyong accepted the body of Amyang, who was collapsing. I'm sorry. This guy hasn't had a good night's sleep since his brother was kidnapped. He thinks it's all his fault that he was kidnapped. It's no use telling him not to think that way. No one will be on your way. I pray that you will be safe on your journey. Yip Sopyong bowed his head to Pyawul. He did not know the extent of Pyawul's martial arts. He didn't even think that Pyawul would be able to destroy the Xiaolialayan temple. The Xiaolialayan temple had too much power and influence to be destroyed by a single individual. It was for the same reason that many of Zizing's clans did not dare to challenge even though they had a grudge against the Xiaolialayan temple. The only thing Yip Sopayang wished for was that Pyowool did even a little bit of damage to the Xiaolialayan temple. He wanted to let them know that not everyone in Zizing would be groveling beneath them. Yip Sopayang looked at Pyowool's back without saying a word. Please, just kill at least one more. He hoped that his wish would be conveyed to Pyowool. After leaving the village, Pyowool returned to the Namling forest. During his conversation with Yip Sopayang, he completely recovered his stamina and strength. After eating a simple and dry meal, he was back in his best condition. There was no reason to delay. Pyowool went to the stream he had noticed previously. The one in front of him was different as compared to the other streams. The taste of the water was slightly different and there were more fish in the stream. This would mean that this stream was a better environment for fish to live in than other streams. Pyowool thought that it might be because human feces were discharged through this place. The biggest problem when many people live together is dealing with feces. All the big cities work hard to maintain a proper sewage system. However, there was no reason to maintain and have a separate sewage channel in a forest. It was enough to use a nearby stream. Pyowool thought that the current stream is an example. No matter how cleverly they try to avoid people's eyes, they could not hide such an essential place. Pyowool walked into the stream without hesitation. As he walked for a long time, an unfamiliar landscape greeted him. But Pyowool was not dazzled by the scenery. He closed his eyes and only listened to the sound of the water. It would be unbelievable to find a person who could determine the direction by only hearing the sound of the water. But Pyowool traveled a long time like that. It was by no means an easy task for someone to walk on a path that has never been taken before, by only relying on their sense of hearing while blocking all the other senses. However, it was not that difficult for Pyowool, who had trained his senses to the limit in the underground cave. After almost 3 hours or more, the watery smell and stench became particularly severe. The stench that penetrated Pyowool's sense of smell almost blew away his mind. It was only then that Pyowool finally opened his eyes. There was a huge temple ahead. The temple where Hukum came from looked like a monster in itself. The signboard hanging on the temple's main gate caught Pyowool's eyes. Xiaolialayan Temple. He has finally arrived at his destination. The stream that Pyowool walked through was penetrating the basement of the Xiaolialayan Temple. As Pyowool expected, the Xiaolialayan Temple disposed of their trash and feces through the stream. Even from afar, he could feel the people busily moving around inside the Xiaolialayan Temple. Pyowool scanned his surroundings using his chi. He felt like a normal movement inside the temple was quite unusual. Pyowool did not have any difficulty guessing why. He must have talked about me. It was something he had already guessed, so he was neither surprised nor agitated. But no matter how much they strengthened their security, it was of no use. Pyowool had already secured a perfect infiltration route. Pyowool walked into the stream full of filth. The water came up to his chest. A stench that made it hard to even breathe went to his head. It was a stream full of feces excreted by hundreds of people. It was natural for the stream to smell like this. Pyowool easily inhaled the stench that would make ordinary people faint just by smelling it. He had a calm expression. This level of stench had no effect on Pyowool, who had been living in the underground cave. He even dipped his head in the stream with floating feces. He didn't care about the feces sticking to his body. An iron grate the size of a child's forearm appeared in the middle. It was made in case of an intruder. A trap had been set up that would ring a bell with a thread connected to it if one of the iron bars was cut. It seemed impossible for even a child to squirm through the iron bars. But Pyowool recklessly shoved his head through the iron bars. Shrug. He slid through the iron bars like a snake. Once he got through the iron bars, there was no more stopping him. Pyowool stuck his head out of the stream. A light could be seen through the open space above him. The open space was the space between the monks of the Xiaolialayan Temple, where they could see what was going on behind the scenes. Pyowool made sure no one was around and went out. Since the location smells, the security around the sides were loose. No one from the Xiaolialayan temple considered that outsiders would invade through such a smelly and filthy place. It was a common loophole among sects who had never been invaded by an outsider. Because nothing of the sort has happened before, they think it will never happen again. Thanks to this, Pyowool was able to easily hide inside the Xiaolialayan temple. The first thing Pyowool did was to find a nearby well and simply wipe off the dirt on his body. Not because he was dirty, but because he was afraid that the monks would find him out because of the stench from his body. Pyowool looked inside the Xiaolialayan temple, while using his chi to dry the water from his body. The voices of the monks were heard. I don't think anyone would try to infiltrate and hide in the headquarters. So what's the point of doing rounds at night? I think so too, but it's an order from above, so there's nothing we can do about it. In our hundreds of years of history, no outsider has sneaked inside the temple. Who would even dare to break into our headquarters? Didn't you say it was a command from above? Don't be rude and be alert. Yes. The dissatisfaction of the monks, who had to stand on the alert in the middle of the night, pierced the sky. It was a natural dissatisfaction for those who had never experienced this kind of work. Pyowool looked at them for a while, and then hid himself in the dark. In the biggest hall of the Xiaolialayan temple, a black figure was prostrating. It was Hukum. In front of Hukum was Hyalbul, the sect leader of the Xiaolialayan temple, and the 10 monks. Hyalbul was looking down at Hukum with cold eyes. So what you're saying is that you've been chased by an assassin and ran away here? I'm sorry. And not once did you hear his voice, let alone see the face of the assassin? Yes. Hukum's voice gradually lowered. On the other hand, the anger on the face of Hyalbul worsened. He slammed his fists against the table and shouted, bang. Do you think that makes sense? You have been chased by an assassin for over a month and you didn't even get a glimpse of his face? Furthermore, you're scared of the assassin? Even after all the support I've given you, I can't believe you've let me down like this. But, sect leader, you have to believe me. What I'm saying is true. He's definitely real. He is. Okay. Let's say there is such a person. But to think you can't even shake off an assassin? That's because I didn't have enough preparations. If I have enough time, I can definitely get rid of him. Please give me a chance. Thud. Hukum struck his head on the floor and begged. Hyalbul frowned and looked at Hukum. This child has no reason to lie. He knew Hukum's pride well. If Hukum, who would rather die than admit his failure like this, is saying such things, then there is a high probability that everything he had said so far was true. Hyalbul looked at the 10 monks. What do you guys think? The 10 monks whispered to each other and gathered their opinions. Then the eldest of the monks answered, everyone knows that Hukum is not someone who would lie. It would not be a lie to say that he came with someone chasing him. He should be punished, but since he took revenge on the Qingqing sect, he can be pardoned. Is that so? Instead, we should capture the assassin who threatened Hukum. It will be difficult to find him because of the arrays in the Namling forest, so I think it would be a good idea to release the hunting dogs, just in case. Hunting dogs? Yes. At the same time, the demon monks who are under my command happen to be good at this kind of thing. If you allow them to go, they will be able to catch the assassin. Are they enough? It will be enough. No matter how great the assassin may be, he will surely be exhausted wandering around the forest. Catching such a person is as easy as a man getting a woman. You have a point. Hyalbul shook his head. The atmosphere in the hall was gathering to unravel the madman. But at that moment, Hukum was screaming inside. No. That's not enough. How are you going to catch him with just the demon blood monks? He's not as easy as you think. Hukum was burning up to the point of going crazy. In his mind, he wanted to say that they should raise their vigilance to the highest level and release more troops to catch him. But the atmosphere around him was not in his favor. In his favor. If he spoke one more word of complaint here, He thought that they would question and lock him in the depths of the basement. Hyalbul and the 10 monks were the ones who remained. Knowing that fact, Hukum kept his head down and lips closed. In the end, the only one I can trust is myself.